I never believed in ghosts until I moved into the house on Willow Street. The rent was suspiciously cheap, but I was desperate after my divorce. The landlord barely made eye contact when handing over the keys, mumbling something about the previous tenant leaving unexpectedly. I should have asked more questions.
Hey, excuse me, you just moved in, right?
A man called out to me as I unloaded the last box from my car. He stood at the fence separating our properties, his expression a mixture of curiosity and something else I couldn't quite place.
I'm your neighbor, just wanted to introduce myself.
I walked over and shook his hand. His grip was firm, almost too firm, like he was trying to communicate something through the pressure of his fingers.
How are you finding the place so far?
Fine, I guess. Just moved in today.
Listen, I don't want to alarm you, but has anyone told you about what happened in that house?
The way he said it made my stomach tighten. I shook my head.
The woman who lived there before you, she disappeared. Police came, searched the place, but found nothing. It was like she just vanished.
I thanked him for the information and hurried inside, suddenly feeling exposed in the fading daylight. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house settling seemed amplified. Around 3 a.m. I heard it for the first time, scratching from inside the walls, like fingernails dragging slowly across drywall. I told myself it was just mice. The next morning, I noticed something odd. The house next door, my neighbor's house, had all its curtains drawn, not just closed, but pinned shut, with what looked like black fabric covering every window. I hadn't noticed it yesterday in my moving chaos. 3 days passed. The scratching continued each night, always starting at exactly 3 a.m. I began to notice other things too. The bathroom mirror would fog up when no one had showered, and sometimes I'd catch glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision, but it was the house next door that truly unsettled me. I never saw my neighbor come or go. The curtains remained sealed. Yet sometimes, late at night, I'd see lights moving inside, like someone walking with a flashlight. On the 5th night, I was awakened not by scratching, but by a woman's voice.
Help me. Please help me.
It was faint, almost a whisper, but unmistakably coming from inside my bedroom wall. The wall I shared with the house next door. I froze, unable to move as adrenaline coursed through my body.
He's keeping me here, in the walls.
I scrambled out of bed and pressed my ear against the wall. The voice was clearer now.
I'm the woman who lived in your house. He took me. He's been watching you too.
My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone to call the police. But as I dialed, the power went out. My phone showed no signal. Outside my window, I could see that the entire street was dark, except for one dim light moving in the house next door. I grabbed a flashlight and my car keys, determined to drive to the police station. But when I opened my front door, my neighbor was standing there, blocking my exit.
Going somewhere?
His voice was different now. Colder, more confident, the pretense of friendly neighbor completely gone.
I heard you talking to someone. Who was it?
No one, I was just on the phone.
Don't lie to me, the phones aren't working, neither is the internet. I made sure of that.
He stepped forward, forcing me back into my house. In his hand was something metallic that caught the beam of my flashlight. A large hunting knife.
She's been talking to you, hasn't she? They always do this. They always reach out to the new tenant.
I backed away, my mind racing for a way out.
You know, it's funny, the police search your house, not mine. They never think to look next door. They never consider that the walls between these houses have spaces. Spaces where someone could hide things. Or people.
As he spoke, I noticed something behind him. A shadow moving across my living room. It was too dark to make out clearly, but it seemed to float rather than walk.
Behind you.
The whisper came again, but this time it wasn't from the wall. It was right in my ear. My neighbor's eyes widened as he looked past me.
No, not again. You're supposed to be contained.
He lunged forward, knife raised, but suddenly stopped mid-stride, his body jerking unnaturally. The knife clattered to the floor, his face contorted in pain or fear. I couldn't tell which.
What are you doing to me? Stop.
His body began to twist, bones cracking audibly as he was lifted several inches off the ground. Then, with a sickening sound, he was pulled backward through my front door, as if yanked by an invisible force. The door slammed shut behind him. For several minutes, I stood frozen in my hallway, the only sound my own ragged breathing. Then, slowly, I approached the door and looked through the peephole. The street was empty. My neighbor was gone.
Thank you for hearing me.
The voice was clearer now, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Who are you? What happened?
I lived here before you. He took me, kept me prisoner in the space between our walls. When I died, he couldn't contain me anymore.
The temperature in the room plummeted. I could see my breath forming clouds in the beam of my flashlight.
There are others, so many others.
As if on cue, I began to hear more voices. Whispers at first, then growing louder. Men, women, even children, all speaking at once from within the walls, beneath the floorboards, above the ceiling.
He took us.
We couldn't escape.
But now he's one of us.
The voices grew louder, more insistent, until they were almost deafening. My flashlight began to flicker, and in the strobe-like effect, I saw them. Transparent figures emerging from the walls. Dozens of them, their faces contorted in expressions of pain and rage.
You need to leave this place, now, before dawn.
Why? What happens at dawn?
We can only hold him for so long. When the sun rises, the barrier between your world and ours weakens. He'll return, and he'll be angry.
But where did you take him?
To the place he kept us. The space between. But it won't hold him forever. Nothing ever does.
I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed my keys and ran to my car, not bothering to take anything else. As I drove away, I looked in my rearview mirror. Standing in the upstairs window of the house next door was a figure. Not my neighbor, but a woman with long dark hair, her pale face visible even from a distance. She raised her hand in what seemed like a farewell. I drove straight to the police station and told them everything. They thought I was crazy or drunk until I mentioned the name of the woman who had disappeared. The officer's expression changed immediately. They raided both houses the next day. What they found in the house next door confirmed my story. Hidden spaces in the walls, accessible through concealed panels, and evidence, so much evidence. Hair, blood, personal belongings of at least 7 missing persons dating back 15 years. But they never found my neighbor. Despite an extensive manhunt, he had vanished completely. The official theory was that he had fled when he realized I had discovered his secret. I know better. I know where he is. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the voices. They've followed me to my new apartment, hundreds of miles away. They whisper to me from heating vents and light fixture.
He's trying to get out.
He's learning how to move between places just like we can.
He's angry with you.
Last night I woke to find my bedroom mirror fogged up. Written in the condensation was a message, "I'm coming for you next." And beneath it, a second message in different handwriting. "We won't let him." I don't know which terrifies me more, the thought of my neighbor finding me, or the realization that the dead have claimed me as their own. All I know is that every night at 3 a.m., I hear scratching from inside my walls, and it's getting louder.
We can't hold him much longer.
Sometimes I think I should just end it all, join them in whatever existence they have now. At least then I'd have allies against him. But then I remember what the first woman told me before I fled. He's done this before, in other houses, other towns. He finds the places where the barrier is thin, and he uses them, which means there are others like him out there. Others who know how to use the spaces between walls, the forgotten corners where reality thins. So I stay awake at night, listening to the scratching, the whispers, the promises of protection that I'm not sure can be kept. And I wonder, is my neighbor still trapped in that space between our houses? Or has he already found his way out into some other thin place, some other unsuspecting home? The scratching in my walls just stopped. For the first time in weeks, there is complete silence. I don't know if that's a good sign or the worst possible omen.
He's gone.
The whisper is so faint I barely hear it.
We couldn't hold him, I'm sorry.
As I sit here, recording this as a warning to others, I can hear footsteps in the apartment next door. New neighbors moved in yesterday. I should go introduce myself. After all, that's what good neighbors do.
And I'll be the best neighbor they've ever had.